a GOAT tournament that I was participating in Zodiac Duelist, which is a Facebook group if you don't know. This is GOATs with CRV, so Cyber Dragon's legal, and so is Cyberstein, which is an interesting format. My opponent starts off really strong. I'm pretty solid myself. I decide not to first turn Powder Greed so that I don't draw out the knock too early. But in any case, he goes Powder Greed and then Graceful Charity and then drops Cyber Dragon. I Sakuretsu Armor and he thinks for a little bit and then just book him into it, trying to like save it for later or something like that, which I don't really agree with necessarily, but whatever. I Powder Greed now because I need to get more resources to try and develop more. If I was thinking a little bit more clearly, I would have thought that he might have set Magician of Faith here. It should have definitely crossed my mind at the very least, but in any case, he drops Duo, which is really depressing because he saw all of his power cards turn 1, and then he flips Faith. I thought he was going to Duo me again, and that was going to make me really sad, but he instead gets Powder Greed, advances his own game state, which is like understandable at least. Like that's like good plays at least. But this one really isn't because he has Metamorphosis and he has Tsukiyomi, so he really should have Tsukiyomi'd his Magician of Faith so he could have gotten like another spell back eventually, but he doesn't really do that. Opts just to summon Thousand Eyes, and then he kind of just makes a mistake with his Tsukiyomi, which sucks because it's like not a very easy card to use in any stretch of the imagination. So he attacks into Sangan. I get Serpent to put my Graceful Charity online, and I consider dropping Graceful Charity here. I think that I can dive into my deck just a little bit further, so I just kind of pass the turn. Maybe he overextends his board and makes my Chaos Sorcerer like a little bit better, but he actually makes it like way better, but he makes a mistake. He can't change battle position under Thousand Eyes Restrict, so he tries to flip a Tsukiyomi, he can't, and he just kind of has BLS there. It can't really attack, and it can't really use its effect because I don't really have any monsters on the board. So I decide to dive deeper into my deck. I draw like Duo, which kind of sucks because he's already like devoted himself completely to the board. So Duo is not really going to do anything for me anymore, which is whatever, I guess. So I ditch that and Serpent, and then I drop Chaos Sorcerer. Deal with the BLS. Now it can't be brought. It can only be brought back with Return, which I don't think my opponent was playing, which is fine. And then I normally have crossed out Morphing Jar. My opponent was under the impression that Morphing Jar, like there were multiple Morphing Jars, so he shows me his deck. It's not really the case. You don't need to do that unless all legal copies are not on the field, so which is interesting. Like Morphing Jar is like one of the most notorious like limited cards rather. Like it's pretty much limited in every format it's been in since like the very beginning of the game. But in any case, he attacks Thousand Eyes into my Chaos Sorcerer. I book him in my Chaos Sorcerer. He takes 200. No problems there. I use my Chaos Sorcerer effect to banish, and then I flip up my Merchant to net me a Metamorphosis, which will go really nicely with the Serpent that I forgot to get back. And here I attack into the set Tsukiyomi. Tsukiyomi can't set itself because this is like damage calculation or whatever. So he needs to set either Chaos Sorcerer or my Magical Merchant. Neither of them are really great situations for him to be in, because if he sets the Chaos Sorcerer, it resets the effect so I can banish the Tsukiyomi. And if he sets Merchant, that's no good either, because I'll just net myself another free spell. So he sets monster past turn. I don't really know what to do here, so I just opt to put my Merchant into defense mode, get my Serpent back to my hand, and then just attack into the face down with Chaos Sorcerer. It ends up being a Merchant, get Mirror Force to his hand, which is cool. And here I just like follow the Mirror Force because it was really easy, because you could tell like the card they just set was the card they drew, and like the second one was the one already in his hand, so like that was super easy. Like I'm terrible at those kind of things, but here it's just like the most obvious. So I attack directly. He goes Scapegoat, which is cool, and here he goes and gets DD Warrior Lady and banishes. Like I could protect the Chaos Sorcerer here. I opted not to. Like it already got me a ton of value, so like it wasn't a huge loss necessarily. And I needed to get around the good tokens, so Like, that was fine. I just attacked in with Serpent and Merchant. Uh, this would just make sure that I would have fodder if he summons something and attacks into whatever. So I summons a Borg tributing the Serpent and then just blow up the Gravekeeper Guard, I think. That's what that is. You ring out Destruction's a Borg, so I take damage. I set return, and I have an OTK on my next turn, like barring like stupidity. And I turn to a board, fine, I guess. And then I draw, it doesn't really matter. I summon Sorcerer, and then I metamorphosis into Righty Senshi. And Righty Senshi negates normal trap cards, and then it can't be targeted by spells. So like Book of Moon doesn't really do anything, and most trap cards don't really do anything. So he tries to like do trickery with like Dust Tornado and Torrential Tribute, neither work. And then I just win the game with return. Woo! It's been a while since I've done that. Dragon Rulers, those were cool cards from what I've heard. Go directly into game 2. I did a small little transitional side into like a more like soul control-ish sort of thing, which is what I do when I think I'm going to go second, but it ends up I'm going first, which was pro as fuck. Just kidding, he had no idea, but whatever. He summons Sangan, attacks him directly after Space Typhooning, which is wrong because Sangan doesn't fear any back row in this format, so that didn't make any sense, like, for him to do that. And he sets 3 back row. One of them is a Torrential, I know for sure, so, like, I don't do anything. He commits more of the board, which is, like, making me wonder if he actually has Torrential set, which is weird, because, like, with that kind of opening, like, that should be, like, really obvious. But I still exchange the DD Warrior Lady and then summon the Jinzo and then set a Book of Moon for backup, just in case he like has Snatch Steal. He rips Snatch Steal, funnily enough, and then I set my Jinzo, and here he goes Call the Haunted, gets back the DD Warrior Lady, attacks in, banishes both. I forget that Jinzo is banished, because later in the game I premature with no monsters in my graveyard, which is the most embarrassing thing I've done in a while. And I rip Heavy Storm proly as fuck. Just kidding. Not at all. Summon Cyber Dragon and attack over. See what he wants to get before I make any other moves. He ends up going for Magician of Faith, so with that, and him already playing a Dust Tornado and a Space Typhoon, I don't really fear any of those. So, like, the best thing he can do is have Heavy Storm, which is fine. So I just decide to roll the dice and set the knock so I don't get completely blown out by duo. Neither of which happened. He just sits back row. I knock the Magician of Faith. It also crossed my mind that he might be bluff setting it, the Magician, but since he set it back row, and he already had a card in hand they didn't summon the last turns, so I was just like, don't know if that's like solid. But in any case, I decided to graceful, trying to like piece together like big damage, but it's not there. I thought the Jinzo was in the graveyard. It ended up getting banished by DD Warrior Lady, which is silly. But I end up summoning Breaker, breaking the back row. I thought it was like a Sakuretsu armor, but it turns out it was like a Mirror Force. So it's just like, whew, that was lucky. But in any case, he just summons Breaker here and then attacks over. And it's pretty much game. Like, I've already put enough damage on the board to like get there. So I just dropped the Stalos and attack in. If you want to see this from my opponent's perspective, he has posted up a video from his perspective, obviously. I honestly think that he had much stronger hands than I did both games, so just feel free to give him a check out. I have the description here on the screen and also in the description. I'm going to just stop talking now, I guess. So, Smashing Pumpkin signing out. Peace.